Non-Monogamous Relationship, A Beginner's Guide. Please consider this just an opinion. Please like and subscribe and share. Sharing is good. Don't watch if this subject upsets you.
So there's a trigger warning on this, and if it bothers you, if it triggers you at all, please don't watch this subject. It's about monogamy and non-monogamy and marriages in the United States. I think that and I'm not alone, but I think that the marriage contract in the United States is the most failed institution possible, and this might go against people's sensitivities. So I'll give you a moment, but I've seen patterns where people get married depending on where in their youth, and the patterns change when they're older and getting married. But typical marriage that goes to about 7 to 10 years, and it has its first problem. It's euphemistically called the 7-year itch, and it really does exist. There's a high percentage of divorce rates about that time, and there's a high percentage of infidelity as the reason. So the second stage after marriage and children start in about 20 years, 25 years later, they have go into the second stage. They euphemistically refer to it as empty nest syndrome, and divorces are very common at this point. And then after 50, there's a third, between 50 and 80, there's a third crisis time where people get divorced, and infidelity is often the reason. So my point is that infidelity, if it's an issue, can be dealt with better. There was a minister who said, I don't have problem when I have problems with people and their couples and they have infidelity problems. They call me at 2 o'clock in the morning. When I go to their house, when you boil it down with them, it's not the sex, it's the lying, it's the breach of what they consider a contract, but it's mostly the lying that causes the problems, and it's both men and women. Slightly less, according to the surveys, in women, but still quite up there as a percentage. So in first marriage is about 50%, and because of infidelity, that's at the average of 7.8 years. Some studies say about 40%, but that's still a huge amount. In the second marriages, it's 60% of them fail, and between 20 and 40% are because of infidelity, and that ranges between the average range of the first marriage is between 25 and 39. The average range between on the second marriage is 39 to 80, and then we know that some go into consecutive uh, consecutive marriages after that. So I guess my point is, if you have a contract and in that contract there's something that is provably unworkable for half the United States, it really doesn't make sense to not be honest about that concept in your pre-marriage arrangements. And it can include what's called consensual non-monogamy. Now, consensual non-monogamy is that you both agree that you're not going to be monogamous in your relationship. And at this point, people think, well, we're a species of that are monogamous, and there are other ones in the world. Well, majority of the ones that you think are monogamous are not. A lady was talking about looking at penguins. She thought they were monogamous. She thought it was all cute with their little outfits, their little tuxedos, and running around the snow. And come to find out, because of DNA research, they now know that they're not monogamous. They're seasonally monogamous, at least some of them. So we know that it's very rare to be a completely monogamous species. And one of the reasons for that is that it's a programming part of the brain that we don't have. Yeah, historically, we've been non monogamous to a great extent. And, when you do research again, the males in very few cultures in history were ever considered to be monogamous. The women were expected to be even severely punished for not being, but generally speaking, the men were not thought to be monogamous. And in the 1950s, according to one expert, she said in the 1950s, when the women's liberation, they had an expectation of everybody being monogamous, which is not a human species type idea. There are more details to this about non-monogamy and consensual non-monogamy, but I would also like to point out that the youth, in a larger extent, are not getting married in an extent larger than most times in history. So they're not getting married because they see their parents getting divorced, and those divorces cause pain, and that pain causes a change in behavior in our population as a whole. Now, there are countries, and I'm not going to name examples of them, but their divorce rates are lower, and they don't consider marriage as a monogamy contract. So you might consider the idea that you don't have to be in a monogamous relationship to have the security of a marriage and have a pairing in a marriage. I heard an interview with one person who said they're not that emotionally immature that they put monogamy as part of their marriage, and that they're more mature than that. It might be a maturity thing. It might be just the way that you were raised, and changing your belief systems is very difficult. But you might consider this idea that monogamy in marriage is a failed contract. Now, I was monogamous for many years, and I didn't have any problem with it, and many people don't, but about 50% of people do, and about 50% of those relationships, it causes them to end, and that's really sad when you think of the children, when you think of things. And I went through the stages that we have: 7 years, 20 years, and then after 50 years old. Those stages have reasons why non-monogamy becomes um, more pliable. And they have reasons why people emotionally and socially, why they change from monogamy to non-monogamy. The problem comes in when you're not honest about it and you lie about it, like that example of the man who said, the minister who said that the problem is the lying. And so make sure that if you make any changes in your belief system, make sure that it's both of you and not just you, and make sure that your communication is above board. You have a lot of communication as a couple, and jealousy is absolutely normal in a non-monogamous relationship. You have to deal with it as a normal emotion, just like being happy. It's a normal thing. So you have to deal with it with open communication. One of the surveys about swinging couples said that they loved how it caused their relationship to be far more open, and how they caused the communication to be very much in depth, and something that they had not happened in their happy marriage up until that point. And so they said it adds to their happy marriage. There was a warning here that there is some people who consider the idea of non-monogamous relationship as a deal ender, and you have to be very careful. You have to be careful that it's not a deal ender for you and your couple, and yourself and your mate and your couple. Now, guys are going to say, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah." Well, a lot of women turn to non-monogamous relationships and turn to swinging and turn to other ideas. So don't think that it's all you guys, because it's not. A lot of women actually have the idea first and bring it to their husbands. So that's also in the surveys that were taken. Anyway, not to harp on this, but you might want to consider it carefully. And there was a doctor who said that swinging and an open relationship will not hurt a good marriage, but it won't help a bad marriage. So if you have a bad marriage and you have a lot of things to work on those first, and make sure you improve the communication, and make sure that you improve the relationship, and spending time together and enjoying each other's company. And that should be paramount. The relationship should be first before thinking of these concepts. Anyway, I thank you for your time, and please be careful. This is not always greeted with a lot of friendliness, but it actually is reality. And that's another thing that bothers me, is when there's something that's reality and it's completely out of people's uh, ideas and thoughts. So, okay, thank you very much. And okay, so this is the second part to this video. And I just wanted to say that I'm happily married, and I was the first marriage, and I'm on my second marriage. And some of the principles of open communication and being able to build that bond between two people that supersedes, goes over and above monogamy or non-monogamy concepts is an important thing for you to have in a marriage. And I didn't mean to, in the last part of the video, to downgrade that in any way. I believe in marriage, the contract of marriage, and I am on my second marriage. But I do see a flaw in how people deal with the concepts of their contract marriage, and why would monogamy or non-monogamy end a good relationship? It shouldn't. Um, you just have to work through it yourselves as a couple. Thank you. You have a great day. Bye bye.